The bells started ringing before anyone pulled the rope. In the village of Alders Row, the church bells only rang when a birth or death demanded witness. This year, on Christmas Eve, they rang on their own. Slow, deliberate, each toll heavy as breath in cold air. No one went outside. Every door had been marked with evergreens, just as the elders insisted. Candles burned in every window, their flames trembling not from wind, but from something moving past them unseen. Children were told to stay awake. Sleep, the elder said, was an invitation. At exactly midnight, the snow stopped. It did not melt or drift away. It stilled, hanging in the air like ash frozen mid-fall. The world became soundless, as if night were holding its breath. Then the knock came. 3 times, too slow to be human. Mara stood in her mother's kitchen, clutching a bowl of bread and salt, the old offering, meant for guests who arrived unannounced at night. Her mother had always said, if you hear the knock, you do not ask who it is. They already know your name. Then the knock came closer now, though the door had not opened. Mara, a voice called softly, woven with bells and wind. You left the light on. Her heart froze. Only one being used that voice. When she was a child, Mara had been told the story of the Watcher in Red. The one who came when winter was deepest, counting not gifts, but debts. He did not punish the wicked. He collected what had been promised. She had promised. Years ago, when her brother lay dying of fever, Mara stood beneath the village tree and whispered into the dark, "Take my Christmas instead. Let him stay." And he had. The latch turned by itself. The door opened onto the night far darker than the world should allow. Snow crunched beneath unseen feet. Bells chimed not cheerfully, but carefully in measure, like a tally. A tall figure stepped forward, draped in red so deep it looked wet. His beard rimmed with frost. His eyes reflected candlelight, but did not produce it. "I've come for what's owed," he said gently. 12 nights, 12 years. You've reached the last." Mara's hand shook as she held out the bowl. "I kept the light. I left the offering." The Watcher smiled, thin and kind, and said, "You did. That's why I came myself." Behind him, the air filled with shadows, other doors opening, other bargains being remembered. As he reached for her, the bells rang once more. In the morning, the village would wake to untouched gifts beneath the trees and the fresh snow covering every footprint. They would say it had been a peaceful Christmas. But in one house, the candle would burn down to nothing, and no one would remember who had lit it, except the Watcher, for he never forgets. And today on Esoteric Atlanta, we are going to go through some of the dark mythos of Christmas. A very, very enlightening show that I actually found quite entertaining. Before we get into it, every year we tell the same story. That Christmas is warm, that it is safe, that nothing ancient is still watching. But that story is new. And the night we call Christmas Eve is far older than we feel comfortable admitting. Because, my friends, long before lights and gifts, midwinter was believed to be the most dangerous time of year. The point where darkness lasted so long, it began to listen. And people began to listen back. Our ancestors didn't celebrate. They prepared. Doors were marked with evergreen to ward off wandering spirits. Candles were lit, not for decoration, but so something outside would know the house was already occupied. Food was left out, not for kindness, but for appeasement. Because something came on that night, the night of Christmas Eve. Not a jolly gift-bringing giver, but a watcher. A figure who moved between houses while the world slept, counting not presents, but promises. In some regions, he arrived with bells. In others, he arrived with chains. And in a few forgotten villages, he arrived alone, silent enough that the only warning was the bitter cold. They said he knew your name before you did. They said he could pass through locked doors. They said if you heard him knock, it was already too late to pretend you hadn't been seen. This is why children were once told to stay awake on Christmas Eve. Sleep was dangerous. Dreams were doors. Even the 12 days of Christmas weren't festive. They were unstable. A stretch of nights where the veil thinned and the future leaked through in omens and dreams. Each night predicted the coming year. Each night demanded respect. And if a bargain had been made in desperation, this was the season it would be collected. This was the season that the devil would collect his dues. Because Christmas was never about a birth. It was about balance. Light entering the world, and something ancient making sure the debt was paid. So tonight, as the bells ring and the snow falls, ask yourself one question. Are you celebrating Christmas, or are you surviving it? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our coffee chats with one of my besties and her Christmas sweater. I love your Christmas sweater.
The only one I've got. I'd like one with a big red nose on, but we're going to be talking about Rudolph today anyway. So I'll tell you why I'm not wearing Rudolph. Yeah.
I love it, and I apologize, guys. Heather and I were both complaining about our hair before we got online. We're women. Sometimes our hair just has a mind of its own, and that's fine. And I'm so excited. If you are new to my channel, I picked up some new subscribers, and welcome. I'm so glad that I've got some new subscribers. We like to get weird. Catherine also likes to get weird too. This is one of my besties, Catherine Edwards. She lives, obviously you can tell, not in America. She lives across the pond in England, and we do these coffee chats once a week. Obviously the schedule's been a little bit weird over the holidays, but every other week we're my channel, her channel, my channel, her channel, and all of our topics range from fun stuff to scary stuff to like health stuff. And with these both Catherine and I are big researchers into different things, but with these coffee chats, we're not really looking for an answer. We're just kind of discussing things and like to see what our friends in the comment section below have to say too, because, we were saying before we signed on, Catherine, we're at a very strange time in our timeline where people if your opinion does not align up with their opinion, all of a sudden you become the scum of the earth. And I don't want to go, I like hearing different opinions. I like challenging my own perception of reality. I know you do too. So we welcome your opinion. We want to see what you have to say, but hopefully this show will be fun. I've titled it Creepy Christmas, because we think of Christmas, Catherine, especially in the United States, Christmas is probably one of the biggest commercialized holidays.
Yeah.
And I think it helps that we have Thanksgiving right before it because it builds up that momentum. And I do love the holidays. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to get together with friends and family. I like that people are in good moods. We have time off work, all that kind of stuff. I think it's fun for kids. I really think now in modern times, Christmas is really just about children and their belief in magic. That's a special thing to actually believe in that magic of Santa Claus and all that kind of stuff. But we know that Christmas didn't start this way, did it, Catherine?
No, it didn't. And I think as we're going through some of the stories today, it's really good for everyone to have a think about the analogy about what we're talking about by the change in time and the creep of what Christmas used to be about and what it's about now, and how that plays out in modern life. Because honestly, I know you love Christmas. I think I'm turning into Scrooge, because whereas I love sitting in front of the fire, because in the UK it's cold, and getting all the cats and dogs snuggled up with us and having a nice meal with family. And in the old days, we used to watch a funny carry-on film or something. What I really, really dislike is how commercialized it is now. And the focus for me is too much on the children. And let me explain that. It's not that the children don't want to be having a good time, but you did a brilliant series, and I want to talk to you more about it next year, on the Toronto protocols, and about how there's this deliberate, it was laid out. Was that back in the 60s?
Yeah, he started researching. Sergei Monas started, I think his research started in the 60s, but I
Yeah,
wouldn't be surprised if you find evidence of before that too.
before. And one of the key things that came out of that was the fact that to make the children rule the home
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not go through that normal child to adult transition. And for me, Christmas of how it is now in most of our countries is
gotten
a
out of
real
hand.
example of that. And when we start looking back over some of the stories from the old, we can see how these transitions, nothing's by accident. I think all our
No.
audience know that it's all part of the plan.
Can I say, I just have to shout out as you're saying that, like my sister, I have to really shout her out because she has just rocked being a mom. Like listen, she's my sister. I know her deep dark secrets. I remember being in bathrooms with her at clubs. Like she's really like she's a good mom. And I will say I think it's because of her husband. My brother-in-law's mom is Italian, and they didn't have much when they immigrated to the United States. And so very modest background. And so even though they're quite affluent now, my sister is really good about limiting what her
Brilliant.
children get on Christmas and on birthdays. And it's sad for me because I don't have kids, so I want to like spoil them because especially when they're really little because their toys are cheap. But my sister, with the older kids, they just want like money now and gift cards. And my sister was like, don't go over this. Like, only give them this money. They need to understand that
Yeah.
this is valuable. And, her kids, they live in a beautiful home. They go to a private school. So she's doing a really good job of kind of what you're saying of like
I
not
love that.
yeah, of making sure her kids really appreciate their toys. And she could give them spoil them rotten
Yeah,
if she wanted
anything.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she doesn't. And I really, as you're saying that, I respect my sister so much more now for holding strong on
Yeah.
being very strict with them about gifts and being grateful for what they have and all that kind of stuff. And
I love
so
that. And isn't that such good an example of one sort of hold the line, which we've been talking about loads over the last few years, but also in terms of the fact that just because you can doesn't mean you should. And you
right.
can apply that to so many areas of life, but every action has a consequence. And absolutely, yes, we really want this to be about family time for those that can. Obviously, it can be very difficult for those that haven't. But equally, like more isn't always better. The unhappiest people around there are the ones, and this is all part of the agenda, hence me bringing up the Toronto protocols and
Yeah.
Sergei's work, is it's all part of the agenda to make people never satisfied with what they've got.
Yeah.
And if you're not satisfied and you're constantly looking for more, and constantly in that victim hard done by mindset, then you're very easy to control. So I've ruined the fun bit, but I'll get back to the fun bit now. But I do think it's in when you're listening to half these stories, it's really important to think all part of the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the gifts that I got, my mom, my stepdad, and my sister and brother-in-law, I found these books, and it's the story of grandma, the story of grandpa, the story of dad, the story of mom. And I got as part of their gifts. I actually got them for them to write it out for the kids to have later. Because I was looking through one of the books, and I would have loved to have had that from my grandmother, where
Yeah.
you write down like your childhood crush, like what your parents were like. And it goes back to that of family time, of really loving and being spending time by a Christmas tree. Like some of the things I loved about Christmas as a kid was decorating the tree with my sister, and like the stuff that was activities that we did, making a gingerbread house with my sister, like not the actual day of Christmas, but the festivities, and that was literally about us just doing fun things together. You usually would fight a little bit too, but that's just what siblings do, right? So all the little girls that had brothers probably got body slammed at some point during Christmas time. But yeah, I that's such a good point, and it is that festivity. And I know my sister with her kids too. They take a lot of interest in family heritage and where hearing stories, and that's part of that old Christmas lore as well, as sitting around a fireplace because the veil was the thinnest at that time. So should we break into the Saturnalia?
Go for it. Start us off with one of yours.
So I have to say, Catherine, I always laugh. I don't know if it's like this over in the UK. It probably is, but there's this whole like propaganda machine that white people don't have culture, blah, 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 but I beg to differ, because Halloween and Christmas are European holidays. And what Halloween is, and we've done shows on Halloween, kind of kicked off this time of year. And the old Christmas time, the Saturnalian festival, was also respected in the same way Samhain was, because they knew that because it was the darkest time of year, that the veil was the thinnest. And so that's where we get this whole like sitting around a fire telling ghost stories on Christmas, which I love, the spooky wooky stuff. So, and it is kind of spooky. My sister used to get upset about Santa Claus when we were little. She was a little freaked out about this guy coming down the chimney and like leaving toys. I was never freaked about it, but she was.
Can I just explain a really funny thing? So I've just had, I always go when I have my hair cut, I get my value for money. I get them to chop far too much off. But my lovely hairdresser, who's only really young, she's only like early 20s, and we were talking about Christmas, and she said exactly that. She said she was the youngest child, her siblings were a lot older, and she said at Christmas it was a nightmare for her mum because she was terrified of Santa, because she was like, I don't want some strange man creeping around my house whilst you're all asleep. So even as a child, she just hated everything to do with the story of Father Christmas, and it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was my sister. I was like, it's cool. He's getting gifts. Yeah. My sister was born on Christmas Day, so it's her birthday, and my brother-in-law is the day after. He's the 26th. And I know for me growing up, my parents used to put us, my sister and I got to sleep in their bedroom. We thought it was a treat on Christmas Eve. Looking back, it's because their bedroom was the furthest from the living room. And we were together, and they could hear us if we woke up. Now I get it, but we thought it was a treat. But I remember waking up every Christmas morning, and it's ingrained in my head, and I still do it to this day. I'll text my sister. The first thing I do is happy birthday. That's the first thing I'll say to her is happy birthday, because I know she gets, Christmas babies always kind of get the raw.
Yeah, same with my daughter. She's the 28th, and it's hard. Yeah.
Happy birthday, Lo. Like that's, I get it. Like I saw my sister. I remember, I'll tell a funny story before we move on. When you're little, really little, and you get like birthday parties, she started to figure out that her friends could always, if their birthday fell on a Saturday or something, they could have an actual party on their birthday. And she started to figure out that would never be the case for her. And so she had this meltdown. She was probably 5 or 6 at the time. And I remember my mom going, well, Mary Becca, you shared Jesus's birthday. And my sister looked at my mom and just started screaming even louder.
Yeah. Just like, that's not work. That's not worth it. For a 5-year-old.
So for all the Christmas birthdays, we see you. I always, if you know anybody who has a Christmas birthday, make sure you wrap their present in birthday wrapping paper. Yeah. Like, be kind and like really acknowledge that it's their birthday. So happy birthday, Mary Becca. Happy birthday, Stephen. Happy birthday, Lois. Happy birthday to everybody who's got a birthday in this time of year. Tamara's birthday is the 31st. So she's another one too. So, all right, Catherine. Well, I've got a list pulled up here. Should we start I know I sent you this list.
Go for it. Start with,
The midwinter veil thins. Long before Christmas was Christianized, midwinter was believed to be a time when the veil between worlds grew thin. In Norse and Celtic lore, spirits, ancestors, and wandering beings could cross more easily into the human realm during the longest nights of the year. Christmas didn't erase this belief, it absorbed it. This is why we put candles in our windows. Doors were once left unlocked, and food was set out for guests who might not knock. not all visitors were human. Did you know that, Catherine? Did you guys do that in the UK? We do that. That's big down here in the South, where people put, now it's lighted candles. My mom does it in her house. They put candles in their windows every Christmas.
Yeah, we always used to have candles. I mean, it was a big thing in the old days, but I never could because my cats would always set fire to themselves. So when you've got cats jumping on everywhere, you can't. But yeah, definitely. And of course, now we see it with the fake ones with the little candles everywhere and the lights and everything. But I didn't know it was for that. I really
It's for the
didn't.
dead. It's
Yeah.
for the dead. So that's, I love it. I'm going to be a little snarky now, because that's Catherine and I, that's our favorite pastime, is to be snarky. All these Christians call people like you and me like witches and blasphemous, but they're literally lighting candles in the window for the dead.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. And if you didn't know, then you should do. You need to have a little bit of a closer word with what's up there. So, but
Yeah,
it is really important. And it was all about, we talk now and we think this whole ghost, the afterlife, reincarnation, aliens, angels, whichever, wherever you want to take it. We think this is all new, but it's not. It's been around forever and actually largely more accepted than it is now. Not so
oh, absolutely.
controversial.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I always say, we think about Christendom as being like the European religion, but I always say, no, the Europeans were the first to be colonialized by the Roman Catholic
Yeah.
Church. There was a lot of especially, if you're a white person, you've got Norse blood. Like the Vikings went around and spilled their seed
Mm,
everywhere, so everyone's got, who's white has got Viking in them. But Celtic, and you and I both have heavy Celtic in us, Catherine, and that was they very much recognized mortality, and that
yeah.
mortality was very real. And I think for them, mortality could come faster. Like their lives were more dangerous than ours.
Much more dangerous. And, yeah, the consequences of a simple mistake were often death.
Absolutely. Even children were like learning blacksmith trades at like
Yeah.
5 years old, and super dangerous. In the winter, back in that time when they would light the candles or bring in the tree and the Yule log and to keep the warmth. I mean, that's a fire hazard waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But that's just how they stayed warm. What are you going to do? Like, you're going to either freeze to death or burn to death. Like, and so I think that they face death in a more realistic way than you or I or our friends watching really have had to face it.
And I
And
think probably that gives you a different appreciation for life because, we've spoken about this often, Brice, and I'd love people's opinions who are watching this. But if you look, I was having this conversation with a friend actually just a couple of days ago. If you look at how we treat children now in the Western world and how mollycoddled they are in general, not
yeah,
all, but in most areas of the world, at 5, children are really helping with the chores. They are left to look after babies. They are, it's much more like it was in the old days. Now, I'm not romanticizing the old days and saying everything about it was great, because it certainly wasn't. But equally, there was much more, I think, of an honesty and a community. Everyone played their
the
part.
village. Yeah, it was the village.
Yeah, and now, it's just like when you see people running around after children and everything, and then you see how that works out for what they grow up like, it's not always a good thing. So there's a balance there. We don't
Yeah.
want these poor children working as blacksmiths at the age of 5 years old, but equally, you do want to have a little bit less sense of entitlement.
Absolutely. As you're saying this, I'm remembering a flashback from my childhood, and I don't know. I go back and forth on how I feel about like spanking a child. I go back and forth.
Yeah,
But one situation I remember, one of my cousins, when my cousins was really little, we were in South Carolina, darted out into the parking lot, and my aunt had to go and grab him before a car nailed him down, and then my aunt was coddling him. And my dad got in the car. My dad was like, "When you girls did that, you got your asses whooped."
mm,
And you never did that. And look, I think there is that, back, if you're looking back in those days, children were experienced, they saw death a lot. They
yeah,
understood the reality of life more
yeah,
than, and I think what my dad was saying is he taught us, like, with the minute he saw my sister, because all kids do that,
yeah,
he taught us, like, you do not run out in front of cars like that. And I do. It is interesting that Sergey Manas was saying, because they've worked us into place where kids like rule the house, and
yeah,
even in school systems. I don't know what it's like for you, Catherine, in the UK, but when I was in school, if we got in trouble or if something was going on in a class, it was our fault. Our
Yeah.
parents would meet with the teacher, and both the parent and the teacher would be looking at us. But nowadays, I know I have friends who are teachers. If a child was late turning in an assignment or something, the parents would then get mad at the teacher.
Yeah.
And it's wild. It's crazy. So I get what you're saying with that, absolutely. And maybe I mean, maybe that was a benefit they had back then, is that they respected life more because they respected death more.
And respected things, because we're going to see as we go through this, there's everything about the old Christmas was about connection with nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
With where as you are, and when you lose that, even like all the wrapping paper, it's a big thing for me. I get told off because I sort of reuse everything, because I can't bear the fact of buying whole rolls of new wrapping paper for it to go straight in the bin. So
my sister does that. She goes and collects all the bags.
Yeah, and so I can see everyone now saying, Catherine, you're such a Scrooge, and fair cop, I am. But equally, I really love trees, and I don't want them to be cut down just for brightly coloured wrapping paper. But there's always a balance, you see. I'm not saying this wasn't great in some respects. What we've got now is generally not great, and therefore we can go back to a balance. So I can remember Christmas. I could tell you as a child a lot of presents, because we got like one present, and I could tell you what it was. I could tell you that I got a blackboard, and I got I always wanted a cat. We couldn't have a cat because we live near a road, so I got a cat. Lovely cuddly cat, and I can remember it because they were so special and you appreciated them. And I think now it's quite sad to see how a lot of children don't appreciate, because there's so much disposable plastic. Look at my husband's still got his old train set now, and my son played with it loads, and we've kept it for the hope that I'm going to get some grandchildren.
I still have a couple of my guy. I have my doll I named Hip.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's freaky, but that was I don't know why. Well, actually, I remember my uncle going hip, hip, hooray. So I named her Hip.
Yeah.
HIP. That's her name. That's what I named her at like 4 years old. But I still have her and like one teddy bear from my childhood, because that was my toy. Like that was my thing, and Todd gets upset because says like, that doll is so freaky. I'm like, it's Hips. She's part of the family.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's my stepdad has a lot of his old toys, the old train stations that were made from, like wood. One thing my sister and I, because we were two girls, we would have sometimes we get some presents that have like a joint presents, like doll houses, and those old doll houses that were made from wood. Those are beautiful,
such craftsmanship, and it's like when you cook a meal from scratch.
Yeah,
the love and the attention that goes into that, you're transferring that energy, and the craftsmanship of the old-fashioned toys. Like my sister, I'm still very bitter and twisted because I was the one that was horse mad, and we had a rocking horse as a child.
Yeah,
and my mum's given it to my big sister, who gets. I love my big sister though. But I like this craftsmanship of this rocking horse. Just beautiful, and will last forever, because it was built properly and built to last, and with real wood and real horsehair, and that doesn't have to be cut, because horses' manes and tails grow, so you can cut them without hurting the horse. And it's just a work of art. She did have it restored, and this beauty, if you imagine how much love has gone into creating something like that, that's then passed down through the generations.
I'm glad you said that. I had a rocking horse from FAO Schwartz when I was a little kid. And it was a nice little, my grandmother got me. I was the first grandbaby on that side of the family. And now my sister, I think, has it. And it's still, it's an old rocking horse because back then, back in the dark ages, they were made by literal craftsmanship. It was an art form to create these toys. It wasn't just machine made, So one question I have for you though, Catherine, is about leaving food out for the guests who might not be human. That's a very big Appalachian thing.
Yeah.
You leave food outside on your front porch, a plate of your Christmas dinner you leave out on the front porch for any of your past relatives who might be coming by to visit.
Do you think, I wonder, the people who did that, do they do what I did when my children were small? I'd leave a mince pie and a Tia Maria out for Father Christmas, and I couldn't wait for them to go to bed so I could drink the Tia Maria, leave the mince pie. Do you think the people that are leaving it out for the visitors that aren't real, do you think they couldn't wait for everyone to go to bed so they could eat it all?
I don't know. That's a good question, because we left cookies out for Santa and milk.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my parents just gobbled those down. My mother
Yeah.
probably knew how many calories were in each cookie. I remember one time we left carrots for the reindeer, and then I found the carrots in the trash can.
Oh, that's so funny.
Um,
Oh,
I'll tell you a funny story. One time we got a trampoline, my sister and I. It was a big gift for us outside. We got a note to go look out the window. So we look out the window down at this trampoline. And this was back in the day before they put them in the ground. Like when they were up, I think I fell off
yeah.
the trampoline and hit my back multiple times. But apparently what had happened is that night after my dad had put I mean, I can't imagine at midnight.
No, putting it up at night, trying to be quiet.
Yeah, my dad was out there. We lived in a neighborhood full of kids. So like he's putting
Yeah.
out in the dark of night with a flashlight, probably yelling at my mom, trying to put this. But once
Yeah.
they got it built, my mom said my dad jumped on it. He jumped on it. So when we woke up in the morning, there were footprints on the trampoline. And
Oh,
my mom saw it and she looked at my sister and me and she said, I go, oh my God, look, the elves jumped.
fantastic.
So a kid's mind,
Yeah.
a confirmation bias, like didn't notice it was my dad. It was man. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh look, the elves were jumping. But yeah, it's yeah. So anyway, but you guys, like maybe that is where part of leaving the Christmas cookies out. Maybe that's where that comes from. Is for past. Some people will set actually a seat at the dinner table for past loved ones.
Yeah.
And they think
It's lovely. It is really lovely, actually. I'd love to hear from people listening, whether you do that. Is that ever been a tradition in your family? Have you heard of it before? Do you do it? And if so, does anyone turn up?
I know. Well, we don't in my family, but I know in Appalachia, that's
Yeah.
big Appalachian. But in
Wow.
Appalachia, it might not be your past loved one. It might be a skinwalker. So
Yeah, exactly. They're not welcome.
leave
Yeah.
it outside.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. Yeah, let me know if you guys do that. We might do it this year. Maybe I'll leave a plate outside this year. Although my neighbors in
And
the city
see.
might think that who's this girl? This girl's wackadoo. Or a homeless person. Like, but if a homeless person comes and takes it,
Exactly.
oh, great. At least somebody's doing
Yeah.
the food. So, one thing I thought was interesting too is Santa Claus was once a watcher. Early
Yeah.
visions of Santa before red suits and cheer were closer to a cosmic auditor. He saw everything. He arrived silently at night. He judged behavior. He passed through solid walls. In some Germanic folklore, Santa was less a gift giver and more a supernatural enforcer of moral order, closely tied to Odin, who also rode the sky during Yule, observing humanity. The question wasn't, what do you want? It was, have you earned mercy? Talk about a dark Christmas.
I think that is so interesting because I did a similar thing when I saw a notes and I said, I did a little bit of asking, what was the spirit of Christmas and what was Father Christmas in England back in the old days? And it actually said Father Christmas was not, quite similar, was not a gift giver to children. He was the spirit of midwinter, the embodiment of hospitality, abundance, warmth, and survival, and was linked to the green man and the vegetation spirit. So he had green robes, not red, and then the red came in when America put him in.
Coca-Cola brought the red in
Coca-Cola put the red ones. They used holly and ivy to reference the masculine and feminine balance of nature. And he was basically a large earthy figure to signify abundance, harvest, and the land providing. And he represented, if we share food, warmth, and fellowship, we will survive the dark.
Isn't that, though, getting back to that Saturnalian, where you have
very
to
much
actually
so.
look yourself, you have some self-reflection, figure out how you're going to survive the winter, be grateful for what you have, band together with your village to make sure everyone's warm, to make sure you have enough stored food for winter. That's a very scary thought. Like if you really look at what they were doing in the Saturnalian times, because Saturn, the planet of Saturn, is Father Time.
Yeah.
It's beginning, middle, and end. And so that
I just
reality.
love the fact it's all about recognizing. You and I spoke a bit about this last week, about recognizing that connection, that we're part of nature and we need to live in balance and harmony with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about global warming, is a key part of everything. It's not separate. It's not something you do as an extra add-in. It's actually completely integral to your way of being. And I really love that.
I wonder if that's where they also got the naughty and the nice list with Santa Claus. Like, do you deserve to be spoiled? Do you deserve what do you deserve mercy for what you've done this year? That's very humbling.
Yeah.
Very humbling. And yeah, I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, guys. I believe it was Coca-Cola, which is based out of Atlanta, Georgia, that turned Santa's coat
Yeah.
red. But some of the, I will say, Catherine, some of the older like ornaments of Christmas, like decorations, like the finer decorations, like my grandmother had the green robe. So that's
Oh, did
interesting.
they? That's
Yeah,
fantastic because I'd never seen it. And one of the things it says here is it talks about the modern inversion. So Father Christmas now extracts money, pressure, consumption, was the original Father Christmas distributed food, warmth, and generosity. Now, when I read that, I just thought that is so symbolic of where we're at in society. And isn't
absolutely.
it funny how we talk, we as a community who've been going down these deep dives for however many years you've been on it, you know, we're so focused. And of course, Brice, you know, I'm talking about myself here on they did this, the elite have done this to us and everything. But look at, you know, when you actually change it round and sort of really put the focus on the generosity, the connection, not taking more than you give. We've spoken about it often, you know, as above, so below. It's an important time to reflect on how we have been living our lives. And of course, none of us are Bill Gates, but and I'm just using him as one of many examples. But how often, you know, how much consideration do we give to where our food comes from,
Right.
to how much we're taking, to how much we're giving, to noticing who's in need in the community, to living in respect with nature and not taking more than we need.
Well, I mean, I don't, again, don't mean to sound mean, but maybe, I mean, one thing that's annoying me is the whole Nasara thing, especially with
Yes.
Americans and Europeans and Australians. Like, tell me you haven't traveled without telling me you haven't traveled. Because if you live in the
Mm,
United States of America, even if you're super poor, you are far more blessed than most people in this world. And how dare you sit around waiting for some white hat to bring you money in a private plane when you literally have a roof over your head and food in your kitchen? Because places I've been in the world, that's not guaranteed.
absolutely. And also the fact of this, all this mentality. And again, I'm not pretending I'm above all this behavior. I'm really not. I have my moments, trust me. But this, when I have that, I'll do this good deed. If you want to set up a homeless charity, if you want to rescue animals, if you want to work with disadvantaged children, start doing it now. However small, there's always somewhere you can volunteer at. Don't wait for someone to hand you this big amount of money and think your behavior is going to miraculously change then, because it doesn't.
Not wherever you go, there you are. I started my
Yeah,
My Store Foundation with nothing
yeah,
but a desire to help. So I absolutely get that. And so we all should take a moment, I think, especially if you're, well, obviously, if you're watching this from the your phone or your laptop, there you go. You're richer than like 70% of the world.
yeah.
You know, just be grateful. You know, like I know, like I laugh. We had a pastor once I heard say this in church that the Lord's prayer, give us Lord our daily bread. He goes, now we're so lucky that we're praying that God will help us not eat the bread. You know, like
Yes,
like the fact that we even have these issues that we're have too much abundance. Like back in this time, they were really grateful to be able to make it through the winter with food. And as a parent, I can't imagine as a parent in that time period how stressful that would be to feed your children.
terrifying.
Terrible. But that was the norm for them.
What you just said is so brilliant about what the pastor says about now we pray to have the strength not to eat the bread. I just think that is absolutely brilliant because now I was ill for about 3 weeks. I'm not worried about it, that I've caught anything. My body needs detox because I spoke to you about it and I think I mentioned it on one of our shows because I got into this habit of I was busy, busy, busy. I was then for grabbing food when I shouldn't have, not doing my normal, really healthy eating and everything. And my body got to a stage where it said, stop, you cannot carry on like this. I'm going to detox. So it forced me to do it. And now I've been completely reset like you do after a cleanse or a fast. And now I'm not wanting to overindulge at all. In fact, it really quite repulses me. So and I'm not pretending I'm not going to eat a mince pie because I do, but I don't want great big portions. I don't want excess food. I don't. So it's so interesting how somehow when if you don't do it yourself, like I didn't, whatever will come along and do it for you. And I think that's where sometimes Christmas is such a great time of reflection. And, the 12 days of Christmas, which we're going to come on to, is actually to really take that time, not to do New Year's resolutions that you're never going to stick to, but really take that time to reflect yourself, not what other people think, but where are you at now? What bad habits have you got into? How much are you contributing? What's your purpose moving forward? And it's such a wonderful, wonderful time to do that.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're so blessed to even have these problems.
Yeah.
Like, let's say Western world problems, first world problems. Like, we're
Yeah.
blessed to have these problems. All right. Well, let's talk about the wild hunt rides on Christmas night. In many parts of Europe, Christmas Eve was feared as the night the wild hunt thundered across the sky. The possession of spirits, dead warriors, and gods. If you heard howling winds, hooves in the distance, dogs barking at nothing, you were warned not to look up. Those who did risk being taken, cursed, or marked. Some religions believe Santa's sleigh bells are the softened echoes of this hunt. I had never known that, but it made Santa seem so much more, oh, that's where that came from. Flying across the sky at night, making sure the children go to bed. He won't come unless you go to sleep. You know, our
I
elf on
couldn't
the
believe
shelf.
it when I saw that. I've
Isn't it
never
crazy?
heard of this before, but it makes you think of everything. But this is where I'd be a bit stuffed because I'm so nosy. So when my dogs bark at nothing, I'm the first one out of bed to see what's going on and what's out there. So I could be in trouble. I'm going to have to rethink that. But yeah, I think, isn't this really interesting about... I'd love to find out a little bit more about this. I mean, the wild hunts mean very different things to a lot of people now in terms of what were they hunting and how. But you can also see how these inversions and how just like the commercial side can take Father Christmas and turn it into something a little bit obscene and commercialized. Look at the wild hunts and the things that we talk about elsewhere, and you can see how other people could invert that.
That was just spiritual. They like were basically like, you need to respect the dead.
Yeah.
This the veil is the thinnest. Don't push. I mean, in Appalachia now, they once the night the sun sets, you close your windows. You don't open your windows to look outside. That's still big in Appalachia. You leave nature. You
Wow.
leave the spirits as they are. You don't want to. If you hear your name called, no, you don't. If you hear whistling, no, you didn't. There's all these that, and I wonder sometimes if that folklore I mean, Appalachian's super old and super haunted, but if that memory is still alive in the people of Appalachia from these European roots. I don't know, but I want to hear from our audience. Had you guys heard of this wild hunt on Christmas Eve, this spiritual hunt and
Yeah.
chase?
It's really interesting. And yeah, I mean, where because you have got all the knowledge of the appellation, so you've sort of got still that holding on to some of these really old traditions. And I'd really want to hear from people who else in different areas of the world have heard about this, because we're going to have different people are going to have different traditions that have been passed down from their areas. And for me, it's really fascinating. We talk a lot at the moment how we know something's a global agenda because it's rolled out all over the world at the same time. But I'm really intrigued to see, going back into history from different areas of the world, where are the consistent themes and where have we got things that differ massively?
I mean, you can see remnants of the holiday mythos today and it's like, oh, that's where Santa. Do you guys do it? And when I was a kid, I think they probably still do it now, but when I was a kid, the news anchors at night on Christmas Eve would say where they spotted Santa Claus.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And it was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And in fact, these days they even have like a satellite picture saying, oh, he's over here now. And it's so lovely.
I wonder if they're doing that to help the parents get their kids to bed. But actually, I feel myself getting a little emotional when I said that. Like that beautiful childhood magic, though, that children would actually believe. For the news, see on the news to watch. The news anchors are sitting there saying, "Oh, look, Santa's just coming down from Canada. He's heading into Maine right now. So all the children in Maine, you need to go to sleep because Santa's coming." But then for some kids like my sister, they're like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many nuances with this, because in one respect it turns out how mind control and manipulation has been going on forever. In terms of this, ever since those stories started. But equally, it's so easy to dish, quite rightly so, a lot of times, anyone in the mainstream media, and then you see them doing things like that, and you realise everyone's got this, well, not everyone, but a lot of people have got this human side still in them. They've still got that. They want the children to really have fun. They want this to be a magical moment for people. And isn't that what so much of human nature is like, this contrast in terms of it's never all good or
It's
all
never all good or
bad.
all bad. And there's still that humanity of
Yeah,
just a simple newscaster being excited about showing a AI image of
yeah,
Santa to talking to the kids, because kids never watch the news, but on Christmas Eve they are watching the news, or at least
yeah,
I was. We wanted to see exactly where Santa was. So yeah. All right. I want to go down to the 12 nights were a dangerous time. I'm
yeah.
going to skip over Krampus because we all know Krampus's story. But the 12 nights were a dangerous time. The 12 days of Christmas weren't festive originally, they were unstable. Each night was associated with prophecy, omens, spirit activity, weather magic, weather magic predicting the coming years, like weather as in the weather. People avoided major decisions. Children were watched closely. Dreams were taken seriously. To sleep during these nights was considered risky. Your soul might wander too far.
Now, that was what I loved about yours. Yours is completely different to what it says in English folklore.
Oh,
So
really?
what it says about the 12 Nights of Christmas in English folklore is that it was a sacred time outside normal rules. It was a ritual season. England observed. So basically, it was a time where the normal labour didn't happen, so people had time off work. The social hierarchy was a bit inverted. We'll come on to that. The strict moral judgment was let go of, and it was known as Christmastide. And basically, it's what happens in Christmastide belongs in Christmastide. So that reminds me, you know
What's
how it says what
Vegas?
happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It was not chaos, it was controlled relief. And basically, they had this lord of misrule. So, in the upper classes where people had servants and things, what happened is they reversed rules. So, servants were allowed to mock masters, children were allowed to lead games, songs were much more bawdy than normal, and social rules were reversed. And they thought that this prevented, it was let people let off steam for resentment, social fracture, and less likely of violence later in the year. And it reminded people that power is temporary, authority must bend or it breaks, and that laughter restores balance.
It's totally Las Vegas.
It's completely,
That's when
completely.
people go to Las Vegas. They're in a controlled demolition where they can be
Yeah,
debaucherous on the strip. The gambling casinos have lights on all day, so you have no idea. It could be 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're still, it caters to that. But then your hotel rooms up above, so it's
isn't it interesting? It's really, really interesting. And I thought this issue of, like, authority must bend, otherwise it breaks, and that if you don't give people time to let off steam, that resentment's going to build.
that's why kids have recess or had recess. I don't know
Yeah,
if they still do. That's why we're encouraged. Another reason why we're encouraged to be active with our bodies, to let energy
yeah,
out. That's wild. Now,
I
I'm
know.
with the next one, Catherine, with the evergreen trees. Bringing a tree
Yeah,
indoors wasn't decorative. It was a patra. I can't. It was magic, basically. Evergreen
yeah.
symbolized life that defied death, consciousness surviving darkness, a barrier against decay and spirits. Ornaments once included apples, knowledge, bells. Excuse me. I'm thinking about the ornaments of the apples. Bells, warding, candles, the souls of the living. The tree was a living spell, not a centerpiece. What do you think about that?
I think it's absolutely key. And I think, again, it's really making you tune in with all your senses and this respect for nature and the lessons for nature and the fact that, survival symptoms, and you're not using this whole way that everything is about aesthetics now. Everything's about how something looks, not the real meaning. And I think that's absolutely, I think it's beautiful. And I think it sums up how the thing that I wish we'd get back to more as a society of humans is to get back to this respect of everything has got a place in the world. So you look at the evergreen trees. So the deciduous trees teach us that you let go before the tough seasons of what you no longer need, let go of those toxins and time for rebirth. But the evergreen trees teach us that, there is survival. You can live outside the norm. There's so many different lessons in everything. And I think I love the fact that you know, they looked at different trees like holly to protect the household.
Yeah.
And, you know, what mine was ivy, was the feminine, thought as a feminine to soften and balance. And bringing the greenery inside was to just connect back in with that life force again.
Well, what gets me too, it's so funny because growing up, like this was, some people had fake trees, but when I was growing up, we went to the Christmas tree farm. We got a tree. It was a real tree. The
Yeah.
smell, it smelled beautiful. And we would set it up. My parents put the lights on first. Of course, now it's not candles, it's actually the lights. And then my mother would have like some ornaments that were set. Like she had apples, actually, that now I know where that comes from. And then my sister and I would get to decorate with the other ornaments. And if they're talking about this is a spell, magic for the living.
Yeah.
Baby's first Christmas ornaments, all the homemade ornaments that your kids made growing up for you.
Yeah.
Ornaments of dogs, like my sister has all their dogs, or like trips you've taken where you get a Christmas tree ornament. This is celebrating and bringing life to your life. And I wonder, Catherine, now, I don't know how you feel about real trees. I wonder now if the fake trees, the plastic trees, dim that.
I think they dim it, but equally, I have a real problem with cutting trees. So whenever we've had a real tree, we've got them planted down the garden. So we always plant them out, keep them alive and plant them out. So it's a tricky one. I have a real problem with cut trees because, you know, again, that's that consumerism. It's taken from nature for our own pleasure. The plastic trees are definitely not the same. But I think actually if you can have a tree with roots and then plant it back out in
That's
nature
a good idea.
afterwards.
Because I enjoy the smell of a real tree.
Oh, it's nothing like it. You can't fake
Can't
nature
fake it.
in any way, can you?
Actually, I don't know if you can see, I have these scars on my two fingers here. I don't know if you guys can see. So, you know, bulimics get scars and people thought that's what that is. No, speaking of my sister, those scars on my knuckles, we were little girls. We were going to Christmas Tree City to get a tree. We were in my dad's truck. I was getting down off the truck and my sister slammed the door. And I had to sit there with a rag around my hands bleeding while we got a tree. And then we went to the emergency room.
I've got the same, yeah, I've got that one there, yeah.
Slamming in the car door. But, you know, and that's a good idea too. Cause like we never get a Christmas tree here because our place is so small and we always go to somebody else's house. But one day I would like to do that again here. And that's a good idea to just plant it after you're done, plant the tree.
Yeah.
Out.
And I love it. It's quite a ceremony to us, and we go back and visit them and you know, and go and say hi to them and how they're doing and look after them and things. Not all of them we have them, but you know, certainly for the last 10 years we've never got a cut tree because I just couldn't do it. I really, just like, I mean, I love flowers, but I don't normally cut flowers. I'd rather have pot plants because I don't want something to be killed for me. But that's just me personally. But I mean, I love those. But I love the fact that this symbol and the decorations, when like I didn't know about the apples until
I didn't either.
Said that. And I think, I mean, bells are so symbolic, aren't they? Energetically and in terms of warnings and everything.
My great aunt, when I was a little girl, my sister was a little girl, my great aunt every Christmas would give us silver bells to build up our collection as adults. And now I have huge collections of silver bells for Christmas. And it's to ward off. I mean, I have this one right here, Catherine. Where did it go? Where is it? I have this for my stuff I do to clear out, you know, it's to ward off spirits.
We got my dad a little bell like that for when he was really, really ill. It was very sad at the end, but I loved it that he could ring the bell, and because we're all so deaf. But I think, you know, for me, again, when we're looking back at this, when you sent through a lot of your stuff, I loved it because it's like, oh, you know, everything at the moment, we talk about, are we in a matrix? I love that whole conversation about, are we in a matrix, what it means, are we in a simulation? But everything now is like a simulation of nature, you know.
It's a rip-off of the real thing.
It's a rip-off, and every time we are participating in it, we are bringing that into our reality. And I know it can sound over dramatic, but you know, every time we're getting plastic decorations, plastic trees, overconsumption, we are doing their agenda for them. Was actually, if we all went back, and like my friend is so talented at making Christmas wreaths and Christmas decorations from nature, and she goes out into the woods and she'll cut bits off and do it, and she just makes the most amazing creations. And when you see that, even me just seeing the pictures of her sending me that, you can feel the completely different vibration and energy of it. So I think if we could all go back, not cutting down loads of trees, but if we could all go back to bringing real nature in there instead of plastic apples, put real apples on there. I got a dehydrator and I did some dehydrated lemons and oranges and put that on the tree, and it's just beautiful.
Well, and I think too, I'm thinking about now, next Christmas is a little late now, but next Christmas, I think I want to get a bunch, go to like a craft store and get just a bunch of stuff and go to my sister's house and sit down with my nieces and nephews and have them make ornaments because it's about them. Like, do whatever they want, whatever they want to make as an ornament that they love, you know, like my niece is a gymnast, maybe she wants to do a stick figure, you know, to put on the tree because it's about their life. And that makes those ornaments, like baby's first Christmas ornament, that makes those ornaments so much more special. But when we see that, where that come from, is that it's a celebration of life. It's a celebration of life, lived experiences. And like I said,
cats know that completely, because my favorite thing about Christmas is all the cat videos of
them knocking
down. Cats just bringing the trees down and everything. I mean, it's so dangerous with all the lights, but I mean, cats are just hysterical.
Well, so many people get their dogs, they put their dog's paws in clay and hang them as ornaments
on their
tree. Like my sister has that, so you have that forever, that the paw of your,
that's lovely.
Because they're part of your family, you know. And we do Santa paws with Ravi. I mean, he doesn't know, but it's more for me to fulfill my need to play, you know. But Ravi gets little Christmas presents on Christmas. Now, I know we're kind of, I know you got another call coming too, Catherine. We have the star was not just a star. It's a mystical interpretation. The star of Bethlehem wasn't merely astronomical. It was a signal. Some esoteric traditions claim a marked timing of dimensions, announcement of a consciousness event. It even drew attention from non-human intelligence. The birth wasn't a miracle. The timing was. I've always kind of felt that about the birth story, that it was more a mythos about otherworldly dimensions coming in to our existence.
Absolutely. And I think we talk about, even the conversations on symbolism have been inverted so much, haven't they? Because normally most of the conversations we have about symbolism are in a negative connotation, about how they've been used to control and manipulate people. Well, it's lovely looking at some of the symbolism on a more positive side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw something this week. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was like so many children now, because of all the geoengineering and doing, they haven't ever seen proper stars. They don't see them properly now. And you're like, oh my God.
That's wild.
That's really wild, isn't it? So again, let us know in the comments below. You know, we all grew up, didn't we, on the mysticism of stars and what are the messages there and where are they, and the constellations. And
we learned how to see all the I remember being very little, and with my dad, and my dad showing us the Little Dipper, the Big Dipper.
Yeah.
I remember when we would travel, if my parents were separate, I remember my mom teaching us when we were little girls this rhyme: I see the moon and the moon sees me. The moon sees the one that I long to see. God bless the moon and God bless me. God bless the one that I long to see. It makes me emotional because I was a little kid. And my mother was, whenever we were separated from family, we would sing that I see the moon and the moon sees me. So we were raised on that relationship with the stars.
Yeah.
You know, and understanding that we're under this heaven of these lights, you know.
I mean, you look at how many animals, how many humans over the millennia have actually relied completely on nature for navigation, and how effed up that
humans too. Think about all the explorers
completely. That's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, we were laughing with our neighbor because one of my neighbors is really interested in pirates. She does deep dives, and Todd's a descendant of a pirate, Captain Peter Knight. And we always make fun of Todd because Todd, he sucks at he couldn't get himself out of a paper bag. He's really bad at directions.
Me too. I've been no good navigate. That's why I say I can't be. I love Canadian geese. I'm obsessed with them. But I'd be such a rubbish Canada geese because I'd never be able to migrate. I'd go the wrong direction.
Well, that's why I always laugh. If you put Todd in a boat and told him to go to the Keys in Florida, he'd end up in Antarctica. You know, and so we all laugh about that. Like, you're the descendant of a literal pirate who sailed the seven seas and was so good at navigation that he could rob ships, rob the Spanish, you know, as they were doing. And but you can't get we always laugh about that, but that they knew. And they also say, you know, they say that's your hair too, that your hair picks up on. Yeah. Well, on the but yeah, we had, even growing up as a child, born in 1983, we had a relationship with the stars. We had one with that, and so it's sad that, that's kind of going away. Now, last thing they say, whoops, what am I doing? Hold on one second. My computer just, all right, here we go. Why Christmas is both warm and unsettling. Christmas carries a strange emotional duality because it sits on an ancient fault line. I love that. I love that line. I'm gonna read that again. Christmas carries a strange emotional duality because it sits on an ancient fault line.
What does that mean? I didn't get that. So, because I always think of Christmas as a date, and I don't think as dates are fault line. I didn't get
I think
it.
it's because it's sitting on a like an like I know fault lines in the earth, but I think they're making the metaphor of a deep, because when fault lines rub, they
Yeah,
create earthquakes, and this is an ancient and like archaeologically this is an ancient practice, and it's on that fault line of uncomfortableness and duality that makes us
yeah.
a little bit uncomfortable. So because then it goes
Which
on
it
to say
does, doesn't it?
it
Because it
does.
brings some very traumatic memories for a lot of people.
Absolutely. It's life versus death, light versus night, hope versus fear, birth versus sacrifice. That's why people feel nostalgia tinged with sadness, comfort mixed with unease, joy alongside grief. You're not imagining it. Christmas remembers things that we have forgotten.
It's so true, isn't it? Because there's for some people, Christmas is a really happy time of year to get together for family gatherings. For other people, particularly if you've lost a loved one, it can be an incredibly difficult time of year, sort of reminding you what you've lost.
Yeah.
And I think it sort of almost leaps right back to what we were starting about the time of how, for me, it's always been very much time of reflection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reflecting, yeah.
Absolutely, it is. And we do. I mean, I had an uncle that passed away like around Christmas a few years ago. So I always think of my cousin, and that sadness that that brings. And, the thinking about your life, it's a reflection on your life. It's like a birthday. Every year it comes
Mm,
around, you're another year older. As somebody said, when I was a kid, it took forever for Christmas to get here. But now
yeah,
that I'm an adult, it just pops up. There it is again.
yeah.
And I think also the changing of the roles for us too. That's that hourglass sand, right? Like when
Mm.
you're a kid, you get the presents, you get to play outside, you see your cousins, we take the Christmas pictures, and then as you become a young adult, those roles start to shift. And then when you're fully adult, you're now responsible for the hosting, for the getting the little kid, and how those roles change over time and what traditions stay and what traditions don't. And like another tradition we had growing up that I don't know if my sister continued this or not. I kind of hope she does, is my sister and I, growing up, we were kids after we went to church on Sunday night, we had a candlelight service, we come home, or Christmas Eve night, come home, eat dinner, and then my sister and I would get to open up one present on Christmas Eve, and it was always a new pair of pajamas that we slept in. They usually matched because
Yeah.
that's what moms do. But and I kind of hope my sister, because I remember that even though it was you didn't want to match with your sister, your sibling, but looking back, like I'm glad that we have those pictures, and yeah, so I hope that people, I know it's a hard time of year, and I know a lot of people in like the disclosure Truth the World get very negative about these holidays, but the darkness can't create anything. Only
Mm.
the light can create. And so Christmas is going to come whether we want it or not. The seasons are going to change whether we want them to or not. Time is going to keep ticking on whether we want it to or not. And so we might as well embrace it and celebrate and take heed from our ancestors about the hunts at night. That actually kind of like, I mean, I'm in a
Yeah.
city. You're in the country. So, Catherine, on Christmas Eve, I think we should task you with setting up a camera to see.
I tell you what, yes, it will be very, very interesting. I mean, I'm always out and up. We've got so many bats and the wildlife and the owls and everything. But yeah, I'm a bit worried about looking up at them all now.
I know.
So,
Well, I can set up a camera in the city. It's probably going to be wild, but it's not going to
yeah,
be. It'll be homeless people fighting. You might see
yeah.
their naked men walking back and forth, but But I
And I
know.
think I think also at the time, particularly, our community, you've been on this journey with us. It's such a great time. I'd love to hear people's thoughts about what are they reflecting? How can we move back to more that connection and community rather than the overconsumption?
Yeah.
What are your ideas? How are you doing it in your families at the moment or in your communities, wherever you are? And I mean, I do love buying presents for people. I really, really love buying presents for people. But I think I'd love to hear people's ideas about, okay, how do we keep the good bits, but let go of the bits which are feeding us more into the agenda.
Absolutely. And I also want to hear one thing I want to hear from our audience, Catherine. I want to hear y'all's Christmas traditions.
Yeah.
What's something that you remember doing as a kid that you really you hold that close? Or if we have any Jewish viewers, like what's a Hanukkah tradition that you remember? Let us know. And so yeah. Well, with that being said, Catherine, we do have a Catherine. Is it Catherine 5? That's your promo code. I think for Fusion Body Studio. I'll put it in the description box below,
We'll
guys.
put it in the description.
Yeah.
And also our Substacks. Both of us are now on Substack. So we'll put those links in the description as well, because in all seriousness, folks, the censorship is getting worse and worse and worse. We'll probably talk more about that in the new year. Yeah. But we would love it if you could connect with us both on Substack.
You're
further ahead. You're doing really well with yours. I've literally set mine up this week, so please be patient if there's not a lot on there. It's going to be a focus for me next year, because we've got to try out these different platforms, because it's not easy.
And support Substack, because Substack is a place where eventually we could load videos, load podcasts as well. It's more like a blog though now. So what I do for my subscribers, and so if you're watching this video and you're already on my Substack, you would have gotten an email in your email with the link to the video, which is something I can control.
Yeah.
YouTube, we tell you to hit the bell, but it's a hit or miss whether YouTube's going to actually push the video out. So if you subscribe to our Substacks, we will be able to send you those notifications personally.
I'd love it, because I've spent quite a time and money on my newsletter list, and it's really, really hard. Even the newsletters are really censored. They go to people's spams folders, regardless of how careful you are. People do not see them. So it does take us quite a lot of time to set these things up and learn how to use it. And it's another platform to upload. But we're really trying to look into how we can keep connected, because I am pretty sure if anyone has seen the new X guidelines, if you haven't, go and look into them. They're pretty horrific. So I think we're going to be hit even harder next year. So please do connect in with us. We want this community to be able to support each other moving forward. I think that's vital.
Well, I will say, if you follow me on Substack, you'll see I tagged Catherine in this video because you can collab. So if you see her tag, that will click you over. You can click on her name and it'll take you over to her Substack, so you can subscribe to her.
Brilliant.
And it's totally free. I just realized I've got donors. You can donate to help us on Substack. Thank you to my donors. I didn't even know that was a possibility until I got a notification one day. And so I thank you, Substack. Thank you to all these platforms that are willing to not play the rules and to let us just be us. So yeah. All right,
thank
Catherine.
you to everyone that supports us, in whatever way it is, whether it's just watching us, whether it's taking the time to make a comment, we really appreciate that, whether it's sharing, whatever it is. And, if you are on Substack and you want to make a donation, both our animals will be very grateful.
Yes, Ravi will get some great Santa Paws gifts this year because of our Substackers. So, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Catherine. Next week, we'll be over on Catherine's channel for the last episode of 2025, and then we'll kick off 2026 back over on my channel. Bye, everybody.
Bye.